My friend, Rabbi Jonathan Zasloff, made note of the following comment on Facebook. It was posted by producer Jeremy Flood. A good law of history is that if you ever find yourself opposing a student movement while siding with the ruling class, you are wrong. Every single time, in every era, no matter the issue. Not long ago, I would have loved that statement. Like many of you, I am a power to the people type, speak truth to power. And I'm especially moved by a youthful surge of energy that insists on justice. Young people with so much to lose, risking so much, risking their lives. Remember that iconic picture at Tiananmen Square? The March for Our Lives movement started by students at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, Greta Thunberg. And some of those movements have undeniably changed our world. Civil rights in the 60s, feminism in the 70s, the outrage on campuses following the Kent State shootings. I suspect that some of you were in those movements, and we're proud to know that you were. But someone responded to Flood's post with a description of the NSGSU, the National Socialist German Students' Union. This was also a radical student movement from 1926 to 1933 that sought to bring down the Weimar Republic and replace it with the Nazi regime. And my friend Jonathan listed a whole bunch of student movements, quite literally from Maoist China to now in the US in our own backyard, movements that would make us shudder. Of course, most student movements are not fascist movements, but that doesn't mean that they're exactly right either, which is part of why this moment is so incredibly painful for progressive and liberal Jews. Some, not all, but some of the protests on college campuses have moved far beyond being pro-Palestinian and are better characterized as anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. Some include targeted hate speech and intimidation. Just today, a student leader at Columbia said, "Zionists don't deserve to live." To be fair, that student apologized. But still, comments like that strike deep fear and outrage in our hearts. It's also true that many of us are not exactly aligned with those who are calling for the National Guard and other heavy-handed tactics on campus, and it's difficult to know exactly where we stand. It's not this week's Parsha, but I happened to be studying Korach yesterday with a student who's preparing to become bar mitzvah. The thing about that story, it's a story of a rebellion, is that when Korach leads his rebellion against Moses, his argument is quite reasonable. He says, why do Moses and Aaron hold all of the power? Aren't all of God's people holy? It's not the words spoken by Korach or their surface meaning that are the problem. The rabbis teach us that it's the spirit of divisiveness, greed, and arrogance that causes God to quash the rebellion and return power to Moses' hands. This story is used as the example of an argument that is not for the sake of heaven. There are two kinds of arguments in our tradition. One that is l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, for a society to better itself and build itself and learn from each other, and one that is not. And Korach's rebellion is considered one that is not. And so the Jewish tradition teaches us that we must be discerning about the movements we join. It's exciting, maybe even intoxicating, to be a part of an activism that will change the world for good. But that exciting nature and that intoxication can be dangerous, too. Another example from our tradition, in Exodus, Moses tells the people, gather your gold and your jewelry. We'll use it to build the Mishkan, the sacred space. That commandment comes just 2 weeks after Aaron says the very same words for the building of the golden calf, the most egregious error of our people. It's the exact same words. It's almost the exact same scene. And in one story, it will divide our people and erode our community, and in another, it will bring us to a holier future. We have to be discerning in the movements we join and in the leaders we follow. On this Shabbat Pesach, this time of redemption, this moment of liberation and hope, I want to say first and foremost to all those affected by these chaotic experiences on campuses, to all TIOH college students, parents of college students, students in LA who are far from their families, we are with you, we are holding you. If you are frightened right now, or hurt, or alone, we are with you. We were part of a consortium of synagogues that sent Shabbat dinner to UCLA Hillel students tonight, and if anybody here or listening knows of someone who could use a Shabbat meal or any kind of reach out, please do not hesitate to let us know. That's what we're here for. That's what we do. And I also want to say to those who are joining the protests, if you're listening, or if you know someone who is, please consider another way to express your views. There is a reasonable side to the pro-Palestinian movement, a very reasonable side. There's a reasonable critique of Israel to offer. There's a reasonable critique of the US to offer. But the minute the energy bleeds into anti-Semitism or denigration of any people, it is no longer a movement for justice and peace. It is not calling for an end to suffering, but rather it's furthering. College students, could your generation be the one that teaches us how to dialogue, to resist the power of sound bites and slogans, to choose instead talking and listening? That would be redemption. Shabbat Shalom. We rise for Aleinu, page 282.